Welcome to A Garden a Day with Maidenbrock Gardens, where we explore the world one garden at a time. Today is March 31st. A bit of trivia to start today's episode. Host trivia, or fun fact if you prefer to look at it that way. Today's garden is located in Florence, Italy. Almost 20 years ago, we're not quite there yet, but almost 20 years ago, my husband and I got married in this beautiful city of Florence, Italy. The city holds a special place in my heart, and I absolutely love every minute of being in Florence. Eating dinner outside on a piazza, walking into the shops, hearing the church bells ring, seeing the architecture, everything. Everything about Florence is absolutely divine. So today, we are looking across the River Arno at the Palazzo Pitti, and we are exploring the Palazzo's backyard at the very famous and the very first Italian garden, or at least the first of what we call an Italian garden today. We are visiting Boboli Gardens in Florence, Italy. Spanning about 111 acres, Boboli Gardens is a garden, yes, but it's often called an open-air museum because of its fountains, statues, grottos, amphitheater, and its rich history, especially with the Medici family, dating back to the 15th century. The original fields were laid out as vegetable gardens by the Borgolo family. The origin of the name Boboli is not entirely known, but some think it's a corruption of the name Borgolo. In 1418, Luca Pitti purchased the land from the Borgolo family and commissioned the construction of Palazzo Pitti. Luca Pitti was a banker during the same period as Cosimo de' Medici, the patriarch of the Medici family, who established the Medicis as rulers of Florence. During the final years of Cosimo's life, when Cosimo was too feeble to rule, Luca Pitti stepped in and held the government together. For his loyalty to Cosimo de' Medici, Luca Pitti was generously rewarded. After Cosimo's death, though, in 1464, Luca Pitti's power and influence in the region declined. Construction of the palazzo halted the following year, and Pitti died 7 years later, never having completed his palazzo. Many years later, 77 years later, the palazzo was purchased by Eleonora of Toledo, Duchess of Florence and wife of Cosimo I de' Medici. This Cosimo was the great-great-grandson of the elder Cosimo's brother, Lorenzo, and it is this Cosimo that we have to thank for some notable architecture that Florence is still known for today. Cosimo I established the Uffizi, which means office, to organize his administration, and he had the Vasari corridor built on top of the Ponte Vecchio, so he could travel from the Palazzo Vecchio across the Arno River to his Palazzo Pitti without being seen. Today, the Uffizi is, of course, better known as the Uffizi Gallery Art Museum, and the Vasari corridor above the Ponte Vecchio is still there and has just recently reopened to the public. The Palazzo Pitti was greatly enlarged for Cosimo and Eleonora, and the gardens were laid out for Eleonora. The garden lacks a natural water source, so a complex irrigation system was installed to collect water from the River Arno. The gardens are laid out geometrically and symmetrically. Today, centuries-old oak trees can be found in the gardens, along with centuries-old statues and fountains. The Fountain of Neptune was created between 1565 and 1568. A little more than 200 years later, in 1777, the Basin of Neptune was installed to collect water to irrigate the garden, and the fountain was installed in the basin. A secret corner of the garden was once designated as a private space for the Medici family. Toward the end of the 18th century, this secret garden was rededicated to growing camellias. Today, there are 49 camellia specimens in the garden, representing 37 varieties. A favorite spot in the garden for many is the Buontalenti Grotto, built between 1583 and 1593. It was begun by Vasari, the same architect who designed the passageway across the Ponte Vecchio, but it was finished by architect and theatrical stage designer Bernardo Buontalenti. The interior of the grotto is covered by stalactites, with statues almost embedded within the walls, with some of them looking as if they're almost part of the structure. There were once original Michelangelo statues in the grotto. Today, the statues are replicas. The originals are housed at the Accademia Gallery. Fun fact of this episode, part 2. Buontalenti, the architect, might very well be the guy who invented Florence-style gelato. What a great guy. I think I'm in love. The garden was expanded in the 1700s with the additions of the Lemon House, the Coffee House, and the Cavalier's Garden. The Coffee House was built according to the fashion of the time, of Europeans enjoying coffee al fresco. The building has just recently reopened after a renovation. There is a wide tree-lined alley that is quite a popular spot in the garden. The old oak trees along the stroll were planted between 1612 and 1614. The amphitheater is another beautiful spot in the garden. It was built in 1550 as an amphitheater garden. The spot had been used as the quarry for building the palazzo. There's an Egyptian obelisk located in the amphitheater. The obelisk was brought from Luxor and installed in the garden in 1790. Boboli Gardens is considered the first Italian-style garden. It has inspired many other gardens around the world. The garden first opened to the public in 1766 and is still the largest green space in Florence. It is, of course, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This garden is hilly and has stairs to climb. Although I think everyone on the planet should experience this garden at least once, it's probably not the best place to go for anyone who wants to avoid walking up hills or pushing a baby stroller up hills. But those hills offer a great reward. When you get to the top, turn around for some of the most stunning views of the historic city center. The best time to visit Boboli Gardens is right now, in the spring. By summer, some of the plants do burn out a bit. I have barely scratched the surface of this beautiful Italian garden, and I do hope you get a chance to visit. But for today, that's about it for today's garden visit. Join me here tomorrow to find out where we're going next. If you haven't done so yet, I invite you to subscribe to the show and leave a review. I really appreciate all your support, and it helps others find the show too. Thank you for listening. That's about it. If all goes well, I'll be right back here tomorrow. See you then.